Welcome to Pulpcast, the official podcast of thepulpmedia.com. In this podcast, we discuss everything in pulp culture, from comic books to movies and video games. This week, we're excited to bring you an interview with Caspar Wijngaard and Dan Watters, the creators behind Limbo at Image Comics. So what have you been working on today? How's your day been going?
Yeah, I'm just working on 6 right now. Just getting 6 ready, like simultaneously with the trade as well. Sorry, I wasn't sure if we were actually on or not.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. Since you've been working on, or like starting a new issue, why don't we start with talking about your kind of development process?
For Limbo, this is my first book where I've been a co-creator on the project. So before I was just working a script. This time, it was an idea that I had. It was a comic that I wanted to write myself, but I don't really rate myself as a writer. I'd worked with Dan, who was the author on Limbo, on a book before. And, we had similar ideas of how we thought comics should work, and we'd go out after work and we'd meet in pubs in London and just talk about comics and in general and just stories that we'd like to tell. And if we could tell these stories in the book that we were working on, like what we would do, things that we couldn't do. When we're both finishing up work on our book and I was getting ready for the next project that I wanted to work on, and I decided that I wanted to do my own book because I'd spent so many years doing other people's work, like drawing other people's work. That's not really why I got into comics. I'd always done my own comics before. So I kind of wanted to take the leap and just, maybe kickstart something or just pitch something. And I'd met with Eric Stevenson, the publisher of Image, 2 or 3 years in a row, during portfolio reviews at various cons. And, he was always saying, you're getting better. I really like your style. He wasn't really particularly keen on the comics I was working on. He didn't really think they reflected me, personally. He could see that it wasn't, my heart wasn't in it. And I guess that kind of, it was more of a job than it wasn't really my passion. It was just like, I was working in comics and I was getting paid and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. He could tell, he could see my pin-ups and he could see the stuff that I was doing and my concept art, and he could see that, I guess it kind of shined brighter than the stuff that I was doing to someone else's script. So he was like, have you ever thought about doing your own comic? And I was like, well, that's all I ever want to do. And he was like, well, why don't you do something? Well, why don't you do your book? And I was like, well, yeah, I should. I keep making excuses. I shouldn't get off my ass and do this. So, I went away. I was talking to Dan, and Dan had a script. But he was coming up with ideas for a voodoo story, and I had been working on this neon noir story, which is, I guess, almost the backbone with the villain, the Thumb. And Dan had been talking about his story, and I was like, we were just, I guess we were drinking, and then and we were like, hey, we could put these two together, and I was like, I can't write, and I trust you as a writer. We've done a book together, and we work well together. Do you want to jump in on this book that I'm doing and weave your story into it, and we can make a pitch? And next time we see, next time we go to a con or the next time we have an opportunity to pitch it, we should totally do something. So we put the pitch together, and the next time I saw Eric, I pitched it to Eric, and he really liked it. So that's how it got picked up, basically.
Awesome. That's
was that the question?
Story. Not necessarily, but it's okay. We can come back around to it.
Sorry, I can't remember. But yeah, that's how. Sorry, what was I thought the question was how we made the book. Sorry, I may have gone on a bit of a tangent there.
No, it's fine. It was more specific as to your artistic development and how.
Well, I guess that's it, really. I needed to do my own book, which is Limbo. I had to do something that reflected me as a person, and I feel like all that, my repressed kind of comicness inside me of making a comic has come out in this book. Everything I've wanted to do in a comic is in this book, basically. I feel like I've been holding it in, and I needed to get it all out. So I had to make this book that represented me. down to a T, which is this book. Like, you know, like everything from the colors to the design is something that I like to do in my own art, you know, and I couldn't really do that in any of the books, you know, given maybe it had a different colorist or a different writer or a different design. Like me and Dan, as a writer, you know, like we really trust each other, and the way that we've built Limbo is, you know, we kind of plot the book together, and then he'll go away and, you know, write it, and then I'll draw it. So the process is very different, but it's all based on trust. Really, we both trust each other to make this book.
Awesome. So let's jump back to the beginning and let's talk about how you got started in comics. So did you grow up reading comics? Were you like a manga fan?
Sure.
Or was it?
Yeah, I read a lot of manga. I read a lot of. I didn't really read a lot of superhero comics. You know, I guess comics in the UK aren't as accessible as they are in the States. You know, we only get like annuals, and we only get like the big stuff. Like you can go to a comic book store and buy the smaller stuff. I wasn't going to say sort of smaller stuff, but you know, the lesser known characters didn't really. You know, you'd have to go to a comic book store, and again, all those books were imported in from the States. Like they still are now. You know, we don't have a printer. You know, as far as I know, there's no printers over here that print these books. You know, they're all shipped in. So, you know, they all have a dollar sign on the front. So again, like I'd get annuals. I was really into the Turtles when I was a kid. You know, I grew up, you know, I was born in the early 80s, so I caught the Turtles and the early manga. And I was, you know, like I'd seen the Turtles and I read the original Turtle graphic novels, which were really violent. And then I got really into stuff like Robotech, the manga, the cartoon.
Right.
Which led to watching Gundam, and then I was obsessed with collecting Gundam models. You know, I'd make the Gundam toys, and then I was reading more adult manga, which I thought was really awesome because I was probably about like 11, and this stuff was like people, you know, like Akira, people's heads were blowing up and all types of like stuff that kids shouldn't be reading. But I thought this stuff was awesome. I didn't realize comics were like that. You know, like I didn't realize you could read comics like this or watch them. You know, like and we had a lot of manga VHS as well. So, you know, I really got into it, and then I kind of left it for a bit. You know, I was always drawing. I've always been drawing, but it wasn't really necessarily comics. I was doing my own like personal comics, but they were less. I don't know how to explain. They were, I guess, more cartoony. I guess they kind of had like a Scott Pilgrim feel to the look. You know, they were super deformed in a weird way because it was, you know, like that was my shorthand. I never really had a good shorthand when I did comics. Like I could draw pinups and, you know, like big pieces or cover work, but my shorthand wasn't very good. So I rushed stuff. I worked really, really quick, or at least I did before I got into comics. And I look back at this, you know, like I look back at my work like 5 years ago, and I'm looking at my pinups and I think, wow, these are really good. You know, like I'm still really happy with this. And I look at the comic work I did, and it's like abysmal because I guess one, I wasn't really getting paid a lot, and two, it just felt like work. I didn't really know how to work my shorthand. I didn't really like spending time on a panel. I just try and do it as quickly as possible, and I've learned that's not the case now. You know, I've had to teach myself how to work my shorthand and make everything look consistent throughout each panel and each book. So yeah, I get the cringes when I look at my early work, like big time.
I feel like most people would.
Yeah, so it's really hard to look at the books I did like even like 3 or 4 years ago. Like I can't look at them anymore. But you know, like I still think my earlier, you know, like my artwork. I feel like Limbo now is on par with the work that I was doing. You know, like my pin art work now, which is that's where I wanted to be, and I want to keep getting better. But sorry, I keep tangenting on. I know I keep bringing it back to the book, but yeah. Yeah, so like there was, so yeah, I was reading those adult comic books and a lot of manga, and then I left for a while and just focused my drawing. I kind of wanted to get into video games, and I did do a bit of video game work. I moved to London to become a freelance illustrator about 10 years ago, and I started working in game, you know, like online gaming, you know, like 2D art, I guess like sprite work. which was cool. Like it was kind of what I always wanted to do. And then I had the opportunity to work on a comic book, which was something that I always thought I was always going to do when I was a kid, but then kind of just left it and just didn't like the idea of having to draw over and over and over, like just draw lots again, because I was really impatient. And I really enjoyed it, like I enjoyed it more than I did. It was really rewarding. I never really got much reward out of the work I was doing before. So I like the idea of storytelling. I didn't think I could do it, and then the more I did it, and the more I started to build my craft, like with my personal comics, started becoming less cartoony and more, more like the stuff I'm doing now. So I kept at it. I kept doing, and I've been doing it. I guess I've been working in comics, I guess about 6-7 years now. I guess like only indie, like not obviously this is my first major published book, but like working, I guess, within the indie scene, in and out. So, and yeah, that leads to now really. So it wasn't really like full on all the way through. I wouldn't say I was always reading comic books. I've got a huge graphic novel collection. I've always been reading comics, but I'm not, I don't know absolutely everything. I'm not. I guess I would say equally, I'm into movies and video games as I am comics. So it's like I feel the same about all three.
Right.
Again, like I said, I worked in video games as well, and and I love cinema, and I guess a lot of the work I've done, you can see that as well. Like especially in Limbo, there's a lot of movie references as well because I'm a huge film fan.
Yeah, I definitely think that shows through with Limbo how a lot of those influences are tied together into that story.
Right. Yeah.
Who's
Dan's just let me know that he's here. Shall I hook him on in?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. I don't know how to do that actually. Oh, there we go.
Let's see if I can... Oh,
Here he is. I can see his little face popping up on my screen.
Hello.
Hey Dan, how are you?
I'm alright, thanks.
Good.
Sorry for being late.
Oh no, that's totally fine. So we just got started. Caspar was telling us about his history with comics and kind of his artistic development and stuff, and we were going to jump into Limbo a little bit.
Rambling.
Film the time. No, he did a great job.
Where were you, Dan?
Huh?
Where were you, Dan? To stop my tangent ramblings.
Sorry, I had to keep up my writer mystique.
Yeah, like
So I had to show up late.
Yeah, with your top hat. Right.
Let's finish up with you, Caspar. Really quickly, who are your artistic influences, like people or other artists that kind of raised you or taught you your ways?
That's interesting. I was really into like going back to the manga. I was really into Otomo Akira, and there's a US artist called Adam Warren that was doing a lot of US based manga as well. Like he did The Dirty Pair, and he did Bubblegum Crisis. He did some like licensed Japanese comics, and he was bringing them over to the West. I really dug his style when I was younger. I used to think it was really cool because it had that kind of Western feel. And then more artists started doing it, like Joe. I always get his last name wrong. Joe Madura. I did Battle Chasers, and he was doing. I think he was doing Uncanny X-Men at the time. I can never be quite sure. I really got into his stuff as well. And like moving on from that, I really got into Pulp and Charles Burns. Yeah, there's loads really. It could be endless. There's so many I really, really dig. But yeah, as far as inspiration, I guess I guess it would be them. I guess I pick out from the comics I read and the movies I watch. I wouldn't necessarily want to. I see a lot of people like replicate styles, which I think is really weird. I see a lot of people that do like Joe Mad art, or they replicate Frank Miller or something like that. I find that really bizarre. I've tried to steer away from that. I've tried to make my style like, I guess, different from everything else. Maybe. I guess that's the idea. That's the aim, I suppose.
Yeah, and that definitely shows through with Limbo.
I hope so. I didn't want to, when you get that kind of like Marvel or DC like classic look that you see. Like sometimes I pick up a Marvel book or a DC book when it's a major superhero, and I've never be able to tell who the artist was because a lot of it looks quite similar. Not so much now, but it used to be. Definitely in the late 90s, I couldn't tell the difference between all the, I couldn't pick one up and be like, oh, I know who that is. I'd be like, is that Rob Liefeld? I have no idea. Is this Jim Lee? I would never be able to tell who was who back then.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's switch over to Limbo now that both of you guys are here.
Great.
I guess Caspar kind of explained that it was kind of a combination of these two ideas that you guys have been building together, right?
Sure, yeah. Well, two ideas we had separately that we... just sort of... that we were both talking about, that sort of slot together quite nicely.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So then, when somebody, like at a con or, if you're doing a signing or something, how do you pitch it to people? What's your elevator pitch for Limbo?
We struggle with that one. That's the thing. When people do ask us at cons, we sort of look at each other and hope and will the other one to go first.
So, Dan.
So, Caspar.
It's weird because I guess it's a detective story, but it's set in a setting that's trying to pull the rug out from underneath the detective tropes. I guess he's like he is a detective living in his own detective novel, trying to be a detective. And
the world around him doesn't seem to know that he wants to be in a detective novel, or that he is in one.
Yeah, and it won't let him.
Sort of tropes to work, and yet he keeps going.
Yeah, regardless of it keep undermining him. Like those tropes keep, he keeps trying to live up to that role he has to play, and it just won't let him at all. It just keeps flipping it on its head, and it's hard to explain it without explaining the setting, because the city of Dedan, which it's set in, does also play a really big part in the narrative of the story, which I don't really want to give too much away, but I guess we kind of just wanted to make a really interesting book that we felt we hadn't read before as well. But again, you can't tell that in a pitch. You can't say that to people, can you? It's like, it's tricky. So I guess we just give it to people and how did we pitch it? I can't remember. What did we say?
Surrealist neon noir.
That was it. Surrealist neon noir. That was about it. As pretentious as it sounds.
That's a good phrase. Yeah, that's a good phrase. So why is it personal? I mean, both of you kind of constructed pieces of it. So where does the whole, like, why is it a story that you wanted to tell, or why were those fragments stories that you wanted to tell?
Because it's really comic booky.
Huh?
Because it's really comic booky, I would probably say.
I feel like
would only sort of work in the medium, and we were looking at a lot of the stuff that we were working around, and it was really quite. It was just kind of films done in the comic book format because comics are cheaper, and that's not what comics should be.
Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like a lot of you read a lot of comic books these days, and they're trying to take that Nolan-esque seriousness about them. They're trying to find logic in everything, and they don't. I'm not saying that there aren't fun comics out there, but I feel like a lot of the fun got sucked out. I feel like comic books is going through that Xbox 360 age when everything was Gears of War and purple.
Everything's grey and black.
Yeah,
and brown.
it went through. It's getting out of that now because there's some brilliant comic books coming out at the moment. But especially when I first started out a couple of years ago, it kind of felt like that. Everything kind of felt bleak, and I got bored of reading comics for a bit because everything was the same. It was always like, well, this guy's going to die. Such and such is going to die a horrible death. This girl's going to get. It was always kind of just trying to be shocking, and I feel like we wanted to make a fun book, like a throwback book to, I guess, to like early 90s Vertigo or
sort of late 80s stuff, early 90s.
Yeah, late 80s as well, and just have fun. Like I didn't want to. It wasn't one of those books. I didn't want it to be one of those books when people read it, they were like waiting to be rewarded because it was trying to like play up to their intellect. I wanted it to be a book that was just a fun read and people just enjoyed it for what it was, instead of feeling like they walk away and be like, yeah, like like this book. Actually, no. It'd be nice if it did move people in a weird way, but that's not really what we set out. We weren't setting out to make like this. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for Dan on that one. But
well, yeah, it was a real sort of vomiting forth of ideas in Limbo. I mean, it sort of touched on everything that I guess that both of us were kind of like getting into and going through at the time. Like, you can sort of tell like issue to issue, like we're picking up different influences and putting them down sort of as we pleased.
Yeah, and I guess that
became a bit of a tapestry.
I think that the one thing that was always quite hard with this book as well is when we pitched it as an ongoing series, and it got picked up as far as we knew as an ongoing series. So when we got to issue 3, we were having fun with it, and then we were suddenly told it was a mini without much discussion, and I guess that's basically, we should have probably prepared for that. And we always knew that there was that possibility that we'd have to tie it up, but I think we got too carried away with the characters and the themes and stuff, and we suddenly were like, whoa, we need to start tying this up. So yeah, we can't have that much fun. Well, we do have loads of fun. I mean,
we had to stop being fun. We had to start being gritty instead.
Yeah, we had to start like being like, okay, we need to start tying this up, and that's not to say that we can't come back and do more Limbo, but it's not going to be something that we're going to be coming back to straight away. And I'm cool with that because it's been a lot of work, and I can't again, like, I'm drawing and illustrating and coloring it is it's quite a lot of work every month, every day.
I think it's interesting that you mention that you kind of had to shift between just kind of having fun to now we have to really kind of buckle down and tell the story, because as a reader I can't notice that. I didn't notice that.
Oh, right, okay. Well, no, because that was the first 3 issues. I think in issue 4 it's, I guess, would you say it's a tonal shift down? It does get a bit more wordy, I would say.
You're the only one who noticed that, because you're like, hang on, there's suddenly words over all of my art.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not just with this.
No, I don't think there's much of a tonal shift. I mean, that was already written by that point. That's quite a plot heavy issue, I suppose. Whereas issues 2 and 3, we just sort of were letting ourselves explore different corners of this world. But then I think, issue 4 is quite plot based. Issue 5 probably does that again, though, doesn't it? Like, I'm really looking forward to issue 5 coming out and everyone seeing that one.
Yeah, that's like one of the first ones. I think after issue 2, like, I'm really happy with issue 3. Issue 4 is just I feel the same way I do about issue 4 as I did with issue 1. Like, it was just like, okay, this is good, but when we sent issue 5 off to print at the weekend, I was just like, I'm so happy with this issue. Like, I don't think I could have made it any better than I did. Like, I was really, I don't always get that feeling of satisfaction of the way something looks, but I don't think I would change anything in that issue. I was really happy with that one. And again, the same with issue 2 as well. And that's a good feeling to have, because I'm like my own worst critic, I suppose.
I definitely think it's a strength to the series to have that time to kind of explore the setting and kind of get more grounded in the world, because you do some really weird things, which is really good. So to have that time of like, okay, this is to help readers become familiar with the world that it's set in, and then kind of delve into the more character-driven stuff, I think that's actually a strength to the series.
Yeah, I think that was always our idea. I think...
I mean, the 6 issues was always planned as the arc of the thumb. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Too much away. It was always designed to be a 6-issue case, because it's mirroring the sort of crime novel format.
I guess what I meant before then is, like, we were introducing elements in these issues that we knew we couldn't tie up. They were elements that were brought in.
Yeah, it's like planned for like arc 3 and stuff.
Yeah, like, we're bringing elements that were going to be like, just foreshadowing things that were going to happen in a 3rd volume, and then we realized that there's a possibility we may never get that far, so we need to start cutting that back, and really, which is a shame. Like, all those things will eventually come to light, but I don't think I've put so much in it now because, you know, we need to start focusing on what we've got, because otherwise people are going to be like, well, what were all these plot holes, you know? What was it? What was all this about? What's this dude? Why was he in it? And so, yeah. But yeah, the Case of the Fun was always going to be 6 issues. And so if we come back and do another volume, it will be Case 2, and it will be, you know, the same gang doing a different case, basically. And I think we, you know, like we pitched 5, right?
Yeah.
So 5 cases.
All
5
are in the pitch. So, yeah.
Well, I certainly hope you are able to do more at some point, because it's a fantastic book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really hope we do. I don't know how we'd approach it. I'm not sure I could color the book, but then, I'm worried about finding someone that I would trust to do it the same way the first one looked, because I've, you know, like there was the idea of bringing in a colorist before, and I'm not saying that there aren't brilliant colorists out there, but I'm really OCD with when something doesn't look right, it's going to bug me that I wouldn't be happy if it went to print. And I've tried to do books before with other colorists, and it's got to the point where I just had to do it myself, because again, it was my book. Like if I was doing a book for Marvel or something like that, and they got a colorist involved, like that's their call. Like that's out of my hands. That's their thing. But if it's going to be my book, then I need to be in complete control of the way it looks. So I only felt like I could do it. Otherwise, I don't want to put something out that's my own that I'm not happy with, I guess, if it's my creator-owned series.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Dan, what is your scripting style like? Do you write full script? Do you write Marvel style? How loose are you?
Quite loose with Caspar, just because we've worked together so much, and we talk so much as well, on the phone or at the pub or wherever we happen to be, that we do tend to go quite loose. And over Limbo, we've actually done probably, I would say, every type of scripting style possible. Pitch, we did Marvel methods. I think issue 2 we did full script, and then issue 3 I started doing layouts.
Yeah, you do the layouts.
So then my scripts were they were somewhere between full script and Marvel, because they were quite loose, because I wouldn't always write what was happening in a panel description, especially if it was just a conversation scene, because I would be the one roughing it out, so I'd work out where people were then. And then Caspar would just go, "No, you've done it wrong."
Well, no, it was just easier for me to know how it looked in your head, because
these are the visualize,
because you did 3 and 4, you did the layouts of 3 and 4 and 5, right?
Yeah,
and 5, 3, 4, and 5. You did the layouts for, and I'm doing the layouts. I've just done the layouts for 6. And I've just been phoning you up every 5 minutes, like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, we need to fix this. Like, I've had to drag this onto this page. I'm just like, you were just like, I bet you were like, for fuck's sake. Why didn't I should have just done it myself to save the hassle. But I think it was just, it just helped because, time, it takes a long time to do a lot of what I'm doing, so Dan just wanted to get involved in that side of it, just to take the flack off me a bit as well.
Yeah, whatever weight I can sort of take off on what is the game.
Yeah, and it was like, I guess with issue 1, for the pitch, for the first 5 pages, like, I just drew them because I really wanted to nail what I wanted the book to look like, and I didn't really want anything kind of dictating the way it looks, so I just started drawing in my head what I wanted this world to be like and how weird it was going to look. I think the only thing Dan had pointed out was that Clay had to have white hair. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's it. I think that's as much as we went on. You were like, Clay has to have white hair. That's all I care about right now. So I just drew the first 5 pages, and what I thought would be cool in a pitch. So, I wanted like the introduction to the character. I wanted there to be some action, which is the fight scene, and and then some cool visuals, which was the Day of the Dead festival, and then like him walking down the street away from it all, and then we could tie it in, like tie the narrative, because it's mostly narration, isn't it, in the pitch anyway. So it's kind of like Dan could work with what we had to tell the story. Like we had like a basic idea of like how these first 5 pages were going to work, but as far as the layout and the look of it, I just went away and did it while Dan was at a con. And he came back, and I was just like, yeah, here you go, with this. And you were just like, oh, okay. It was just like, well, that was good, man. I was really happy with that pitch. It came out really well. So I get like those first 5 pages of the book of Limbo are quite manic, but I guess that was, that's all to do with the pitch, really. That was what we needed to do in the pitch to get the book picked up. So, that's why it's as hectic as it is. If we pitched it and it was just five pages of him in a dialogue with an internal monologue, I don't think they would have been too happy with that. Which we could have done as well.
Do you feel that there's been a pretty positive response to Limbo?
Yeah, there's been 1-2 negative reviews. I was actually talking about that on Twitter this morning about how we got 1 negative review from IGN, and I think I can't remember who I was having a conversation with, but I was just talking about things where you're doing a creator-owned book, and when someone says that the book's not to their taste from the first issue, they read a first issue and they're like, oh, it's just like Constantine, but not as good. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't see any point in coming back for the second issue and then writing it off. And you just spent like the best part of a year working on it unpaid because it's Image and it's back end. On a big site like that, I remember just like my heart on the day of the release of the book, like we'd had a couple of really positive reviews, and then my heart just like sank into my stomach because I knew what the second issue was going to be like. And, you've got this big site saying, I wouldn't come back for the second issue. And people, like thinking like, oh, right, like not only is that our creator-owned book just being like shot in the face, it's like, it's basically sending it a death wish. There was no constructive criticism or anything. I was like, oh, this personally isn't my thing, but if you're a fan of this, this and this, I would suggest picking it up because you might find something in here. There was none of that. It was just like, just don't get this book. None of the other reviews that have been like slightly negative have been like that. They've all been like, oh, it just wasn't for me. It's a bit out of my bounds or out of my comfort zone logically, but like, if that's what you're into, like, go and pick it up. So like,
I always expected it to be quite a divisive book, to be honest. I would have been quite surprised if everyone had been into it, because there's certain people like who do comics who I remember explaining the book to before we'd done it, and them just staring at me like, what the hell are you guys making?
Yeah, and I don't mind that. That's like, if it's,
and that's fine. Yeah, that's I totally expect that. Not none of my influences are things that I expect everyone to get either. So
yeah,
I can't expect to take that stuff and put that through my own lens and then have everyone like it. That's just not a realistic expectation.
Yeah, the 2 books, the 2 bad reviews we got, like, were just really against it, like to the point, like it just felt like they were just attacking it, like for the sake of wanting to destroy it, like, it just felt really, like it didn't. There was no constructive criticism. It was just like, I don't like this book. I wouldn't recommend it. And I was just like, well, like, I don't want to offend you with this book, man. Like, I don't feel like we did anything wrong. And these other guys were like trying to make out that we were trying to rip something else off. What was the name of that podcast?
Oh, Night Vale.
Yeah, they were like, oh, these guys have just listened to Night Go and they've ripped it off. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Like, how are you accusing us? Like, they went on this whole rant about how we'd ripped off something that neither of us have listened to. And that was the basis of their review. Basically, it was saying that we've ripped off something that neither of us have listened to, which was just bizarre. They made that assumption that that's what we'd done, and it was just a crap version of said podcast, which I can't even remember the name of, even though you've just said it then. So that was really bizarre. But everybody else is like, have either said like, we love this book, which is great, or, or just said, it's not for me. I wouldn't say it's a bad book, but it's just not to my taste. It's not really something I would pick up. So yeah, I'm totally cool with that.
I feel like that's really unfortunate that some people just crap on it like that. I mean, if it's good enough to be printed through Image Central, that's got to say something about the quality of it, right?
Well, yeah, but then it also puts a lot of pressure on us because we're no
News,
reviews.
yeah.
So it puts us on that plateau of
The really interesting thing I find in reviews is people saying Image have done this, like, or normally Image issue ones have this certain vibe, or they do certain things, and like, you know, when you sort of read that, you're like, do people not really have a sort of understanding of Image and how Image works?
well, that's it. And again, like, those two negative reviews were like, usually when I get an Image #1, this is what it's like. You know, when we're not all sat there on a forum talking with the other Image creators saying, like, Image don't send us a guideline for what they do. It's a creator-owned book. It's our book.
There's no editor from Image telling us anything.
Yeah, this is so, that baffles me. And I guess you can't expect everyone to know that. Like, it's not, you know, I didn't know how Image worked before. I knew how creator-owned comics worked, but I didn't necessarily know what happened in-house when the book got picked up. But needless to say, you can't compare all these books. Like, when that book came out, I think it came out on the same day as Huck and The Goddamned. And those are two huge books. And Monstrous. It came out on the same day as Monstrous, for Christ's sake. So, you know, it came out like, maybe it didn't come out the same day as Huck, but I think it was Monstrous and Goddamned, and those books are like huge, you know, like by huge writers, huge, you know, successful authors. And then there was our book, and people were like, oh, well, this is the shit one of the three, you know, like, you know, this is the one. They were like, huh?
Not everyone was saying that.
Well, no, not everyone was saying that, but, you know, like, that's how it you know, like,
that was our worry.
Well, I guess, like, but that's it. Like, that's the position you're put in, and, like, we didn't, you know, it's like rocking up to a party with, like, 3 celebs and being like, people were just like, who invited them? You know, like, it's like, that's how it felt. It's like, we don't stand a chance in hell. People are going to look at, you know, we don't have an editor, we don't have a separate colorist, and we have a brilliant letterer. We have Jim Campbell, who's like an awesome letterer, and he's like basically been our mentor for this whole experience because he's done Image books before. But
endless patience.
Yeah, endless patience with us, and complete unprofessionalism in making this book. And but yeah, like, we don't have this crack team of comic book pros behind us or anything like that making this book. It's just me and Dan and Jim. So yeah, to come out on the same day as these huge creators was really, you know, daunting. And so yeah, when you hear people saying, like,
really exciting as well, though.
It is exciting. It is
seeing I had a real little moment when I saw the ad for the Nameless in the back of our book.
Yeah, that's cool.
having Grant Morrison's book in the back of ours was a real bit of a moment.
Where do you hope that Limbo takes you? What do you hope that it helps? What doors do you hope that it opens for you in the industry?
I'd love to do some more Limbo. I'd definitely love to do more books in this universe. Maybe not straight away. I don't think I could physically, mentally put myself through another volume just yet. I need to be, you know, I'd have to take a break and do some other work before I came back.
6 months and go to Tibet and, you know, live in a monastery for a while and recharge the batteries.
If I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd happily carry on doing it. But financially, doing a creator-owned book for a year,
3 people's jobs on it.
Yeah, back end, and spending all of your time on it outside of your freelance work is, you know, it's not an easy feat. It takes a really long time, and to meet these, you know, the deadlines have caught up with me. So the pressure's really on, and I can't stay up until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock every morning coloring your pages for a while. I need to be in a position where I can, you know, I want to get more work that has put me in a better place financially before I come back to it. And I guess the idea is that me and Dan both build up our profiles, hopefully build up our profiles some more. So when we do return, we can come back with a bigger audience for Limbo 2. And, you know, and if that's the case, and, you know, I see a lot of Image creators that do a first volume of a book and then they disappear and then they become huge names in the industry and they come back and everyone's hyped for the return of the second volume because they've read it a lot, you know, over the years, and they've grown to like these this creative team or these writers or artists separately, and then they come back together and they make a book, and everyone's like super excited. So that would be awesome. That would be like the dream that we could come back and do that with Limbo, I think, and do it justice instead of spending time rushing it out and trying to meet the deadlines every month if it was ongoing, which I know obviously isn't the case.
What about for you, Dan? Do you have anything specific, any goals or dreams that you want to achieve?
Oh, I don't know. It's more a case of taking it project at a time, I suppose. I've got a couple of things in the pipeline I want to do. Talking to a few people about that. I think like everyone, both of us would love to do this sort of big 2 work, at least to say we've done it.
Well, just to say I'd done it, I'd love to do it. I guess since I was a kid, it's always been my dream to do work, with a huge licensed character. It'd just be amazing. But
certain characters I'd love to take on.
You say that, but we've also said like if we got given a character, we could do. So like I like the idea of being given some, like if someone was to approach you and give you like a really bizarre character, I'd love the idea of just trying to take that character on and seeing what you could do with it. Would be awesome. I guess that's like the dream there, isn't it? Not everyone gets that awesome. Well, yeah, you have to keep the optimism, I suppose.
Awesome. So now that Limbo is kind of starting its second arc, or I guess halfway through the story, what can you tease for the ending to draw in more readers to experience the second half?
Blood, static, and glitches and
cool stuff with voodoo.
Voodoo, yeah.
Lots more Sandy doing cool things.
A lot more Sandy.
Clay being an asshole continuously and learning from his mistakes. There's some really cool scenes with the thumb in issue 4, doing some pretty cool thumb things. More mystique from Bridget. And yeah, like issue 5's awesome. I can't wait for people to see that. And issue 6, which I'm just doing now, I've just done all the layouts for issue 6. And I'm super stoked with it, like to get this issue done and get it out there so people can see it, because I'm going to try and do some really crazy things with it. But there's some really, I guess, like cinematic scenes in issue 6, like kind of leading up towards the big showdown between Clay and the thumb.
Awesome. I actually read issue 4 this morning to prep for my review for tomorrow, and
really?
It was fantastic. Yeah, it keeps on getting better. So you guys are killing it.
Oh right, of course. Yeah, you guys get it in the store. You guys get it in the store early, or?
No, so this is for a website, so we get like the image review copies digitally.
Oh, of course you do. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Oh, did you enjoy it? I'm really eager to hear.
It was. I mean, every issue is bizarre, so I think I have to stop using that as an adjective. But it definitely, I felt like I could connect with it a lot better, but probably because I've had 3 issues to digest and kind of get used to it.
Okay.
So I think it starts to tie things down a little.
Yeah.
See, I kind of had that moment with issue 4 of the print. I was like, oh my God, I hate this issue. Like, having like, and Dan was just like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you were really happy with it yesterday. And I'm like, no, I've decided I hated it. Like I just got it in my mind that I was really unhappy with this issue. I think it was because I was working on issue 5 and I was really happy with it. And I was like, I made a mistake, But I think more than anything, we did issue 1, 2, and 3 back to back before the solicit, and then I had to take a break because I needed to get more, like work again. And we had such a big gap between issue 1 and 4 coming out that I kind of just took a month or 2 out to do my own work. So like getting myself back into the world of Limbo again after such a long break. I felt may show through a little bit in the art. I'm not sure, like that's just me personally though. So I was really worried that people would be like, "This looks terrible. What happened there?"
No, it still looks great.
Well, as long as I think I can tell. Like Dan was like, I can't tell, so I'm just worried. Like, it's like it all looks good to me, but I can see what in my head. I can see what I could have done. Things I may have done better. But then that's just every artist, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have a couple of fan questions, people from online who sent in or who submitted some questions for the both of you.
Speak.
So they come from Alaire Bowen, and she asks, how long have you both been collaborating on Limbo before it got published?
Longer than we'd like to admit. When did we start? It was Lakes Comic Con, wasn't it? That's when you started drawing it.
On Limbo, you were at a convention.
Yeah, it was Lakes last year, or no, the year before. Jesus.
Yeah, it was November 2014, I think. No, because that was when Thought Bubble was October. It was in October 2014 is when we first started working on it.
Yeah,
but it was picked up within 2 months. From the day I drew that first panel, it was picked up by Image 2 months later. So it was really quick. It's just one of those things where it's like, we're going to a con, Image are going to be there. I want to make this pitch. So I just made the pitch because I wanted to take it.
It didn't work solidly on it then, though, because you were still finishing another book.
Yeah, me and Dan were doing a book together. So we were, was the question whatever work we did, or was it how long we'd spent on Limbo? Sorry.
It was specific to Limbo, but you can talk about your other collaborative efforts and past ones too.
Well, we'd been working together. Yeah, like we said, we worked on a book called Tortured Life together. And that's what I was finishing up. We were finishing up the last issue. That was a 6-issue series. We were just finishing up the last issue of that. And, I kind of felt a bit bad because I already knew I had an Image book while I was trying to finish this last issue, and I really didn't care. It felt really, really bad. But my heart just wasn't in finishing it. I just wanted to get it over and done with so I could get started on Limbo. It was like...
People in that book start looking like clay towards the end.
Yeah, it was just like... looked like I rushed the shit out of the end of it, and I feel really bad about that. But, I was like... All I wanted to do was just, get it done, and I just had such a lot of work to do, but I just really wanted to get started on Limbo because, we've been told we got the book, but we hadn't seen any... nothing had been signed. We didn't know how Image worked. We didn't know... We'd just been told that they wanted to release it in the summer, so we were like, oh, what do we do? We need to we need to start making the first issue. We need to keep sending them stuff. We need to keep giving them things. We keep updates. So I was terrified if I wasn't working on it and sending stuff off to them, that they would, I've been in touch with, Marvel and DC and Vertigo before this with editors, and and you'd always get that email that was like, this is awesome, I'm going to show it around to the editors, and I'd always take that as yeah, nothing's coming of this, that's just that way of saying better luck next time, So it was I was really worried that if I wasn't constantly sending stuff to Image and making the book, then we would just lose contact with them. So that's how it felt at the time. So I was just I need to keep working on this book. But that was really early on. It wasn't until when did it get solicited? A really long time afterwards.
It was a year. It came out a year after we pitched it.
Yeah, so it was solicited 3 months.
The Wednesday before Thought Bubble, didn't it?
9 months we were working on it, and we couldn't tell anyone. We couldn't tell anyone we were working on an Image book, and we were working on it for 9 months. And I'd already done 3 issues. 4 issues. Wow.
Three by the time it was solicited, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but by the time it had come out, I'd already done 4.
That was a month later, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I didn't realize, I thought that was standard, but, I see people that are doing Image books that, I'm doing it now, I'm working on issue 5. I'm working on issue 6 to a month deadline now, so I'm finally in that position where I'm doing it to the deadline.
And then the second question that Alaire has is more specifically for you, Caspar. She says, I'm curious how many artists go straight from thumbnail sketches to inking. So what's kind of your process for that?
I don't really pencil. I do pencil, but it's really rough. I'm like I said earlier, my shorthand. I don't like spending a lot of time on things, so I have to do it as quickly as I can. But I also don't like my messy style. I think like the very first couple of pages of Limbo in the pitch are quite messy. Like I look back at them and I look at the bar, and I want to clean it up. Like I'm a little bit OCD with stuff like that. Because like if I look at my earlier work, like my earlier comic book work, it's really, really messy. Again, going to my shorthand. So, and I spent a lot of time on pencils and just trying to get it done quickly. So I've had to teach myself to just spend a lot of time rendering. I spend a lot of time just working straight into inks, and it's not, like, I don't really do thumbnails. I do my thumbnails big, so they're just like straight in the panel. But the way I draw it's like a cut away. It's like chipping away. So I draw more black, like thick inks, and then I use a white brush because I do my inking digitally. I use a white brush to cut away at the lines. Basically, I don't use Manga Studio. Nothing's vectorized. I chip away until it looks right. Basically. It's a really bizarre process. It's like back and forth. It's not just one line on each character. It's like it's chipping inwards from thicker lines.
That's really interesting. I've never ever heard of that before. That's really cool. So then I guess to finish up, we always like to end with some fun questions for the creators who we interview. So first of all, when you guys go to buffets, what's the first food that you go for?
The prawns, isn't it, Caspar?
Oh, fuck that. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. The last time we went to a buffet together, we were at a con, and what happened? Did I get a prawn?
You ate the whole thing with the tail on it?
No, I didn't. I wasn't.
Yes, you did.
Anyway, yeah, like the tail got caught in my windpipe, and we were supposed to be going out that evening because, it's a con and everyone goes out drinking. Yeah, that was my night done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going off to see Blade Runner at the cinema as well, weren't we? And I was just not in the mood. I was just like, I feel like crap. I'm just... so it wouldn't be prawn, yeah. Chicken wings, I guess. It depends what type of buffet. Is it a Chinese buffet? They always have chicken wings. I'd probably go for them.
Everything. I go
everything.
For the full plate. Go for the full plate straight out the gate, and then regret it when everything starts mixing together.
It's good advice for us all. You mentioned Ninja Turtles. What are your guys' favorite Ninja Turtles?
Raphael.
Yeah, it's Raphael.
Excellent.
It's not very interesting answer.
That's the right choice.
Yeah.
And then finally, what's your favorite movie?
I'd say when I was younger, it was Blade Runner. I actually wrote my dissertation on Blade Runner when I was at university. I was obsessed with that film, visually as well as with just the saying. And I always liked a good noir. I wouldn't say a lot of that. Well, there might be little tiny elements of it in Limbo, I suppose. But I didn't really want to I've always been a sucker for noir detective films and novels. But I wouldn't say it's my favourite film now. I haven't seen that film in such a long time. So yeah, I was glad when we couldn't see it at the cinema because of the shrimp. God, I can't think.
I always find the concept of picking favourites slightly bizarre because everyone sort of just moves mood to mood, don't they? It's always sort of a daily...
How about your favourite film from last year, then?
Last year? The last thing I was watching was Showpieces, actually. Alan Moore's films. Which is like a really quite bizarre sort of Southampton things, which seems to have flown under the radar quite a bit. Because it's sort of a series of short films and slightly longer ones, but they're really, really really David Lynch-esque, all sort of set in this weird sort of satanic bar. But yeah, I'd recommend them really highly.
My favourite film when I was a child was Gremlins 2. I don't think that holds up anymore. I used to watch that film religiously. I watched the VHS and then rewind it, and then watch it again, and then rewind it to the point where we couldn't watch that movie anymore. because it was just torn to pieces. But yeah, so Gremlins 2 and Blade Runner. if we're going on the official, my official written down on a piece of paper in a notebook at some point rules, then that's what they would be. They wouldn't be now, but yeah, that's, if I'd ever said it, that's probably what they were.
It's definitely some great variety.
Eraserhead's the one I come back to all the time.
Hellraiser.
Eraserhead.
So pretentious.
Where can people find you online?
Twitter. I had a Facebook illustration page, but no one ever goes there, and so I never update it. But Twitter's where I guess we're most both active.
Yeah.
And I'm at Caspanova, and you are
at Dan PG Watters.
What's the PG for? Parental guidance.
It's my name.
Dan Parental Guidance Watters.
Exactly. Patrick Gerard.
Oh, is it Patrick Gerard?
Yeah.
That should be your pen name. Patrick Gerard. Patrick Watters. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you guys so much for your time. This has been wonderful, and I really do. I wish you the best with the conclusion of Limbo coming up, and then hopefully we'll see some more of those arcs in the future.
Sweet. Can we plug the trade? Because the trade's
coming out plug away by all means.
Well, yeah, that's it really.
There will be a trade.
Yeah,
no,
trade
June
comes out beginning of June,
and it's going to look gorgeous.
Yeah, it's going to be a good book. Well, we say that as they're blowing our own trumpets, but yeah, we're really excited about that because, you know, obviously that's our chance to pick up new readers. You know, issue 1's out. As far as we know, there aren't many copies left, or at least to pick up. Issue 2 is just gone. You know, it's all gone. So unless you get it digitally, we don't really have much of a chance of picking up any more readership before the arc's out. So we're super excited about getting the trade out and getting new readers, basically, and getting more people to see our book. So that's the next exciting thing, you know, for us. Like issue 6 and stuff like that. It's cool to get it out and get it into everyone's hands, but I'm excited about everyone seeing the whole thing as well, which will be awesome. Because I think it works better together. It'd be weird if someone gave you issue 3 of Limbo and you'd look at it and you'd be like, this makes no sense. This is a weird book.
Cool. We'll definitely keep our eyes peeled out for that. And then, of course, issue 4 comes out tomorrow.
That's right, yeah.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night and best wishes with all of your future endeavors.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. You have been listening to Pulpcast, the official podcast of thepulpmedia.com. You can email questions that we'll answer in future episodes to thepulpmediaus@gmail.com. Also, please check out our website, thepulpmedia.com, for reviews, articles, and more.